Good evening, everybody. It's been a long day. So, I had a memory that was triggered the other day, and it was of graduate school. All right. When I was in graduate school, I can honestly say that I met a Jackie Chan stunt double. Stunt double. It's not what you think. Jackie Chan did a movie where he was twins, and one of the twins was a piano player, right? And apparently, his hands are so busted up and everything that they look abnormal. They don't look like the hands of a piano player, and he doesn't know how to play the piano. So, for the scene, he had someone substitute their hands, all right? And he says, if you look at the film, his hands are very thick, his fingers are thick and fat, but mine are long. So, let me adjust this. I met the guy who was a hand double, a hand model for Jackie Chan. And he was a roommate of mine in graduate school in Rutgers when I was studying for my master's and PhD. So, interesting guy. I cannot remember his name. But he was, of course, Chinese. And I think he might have been maybe born in mainland China, but he was from Hong Kong. And he spoke Mandarin and Cantonese. He was obviously an intelligent guy. He was going to grad school for something, and it wasn't music. On top of that, he told me a little bit about his piano career. He was a professional piano player in Hong Kong. And what happened was he specialized in Rachmaninoff. And if you know Rachmaninoff, Rachmaninoff allegedly had very big, very long hands. And playing Rachmaninoff, if you don't have the hands he did, is very difficult. And this individual, he wasn't particularly tall for a Chinese, so he didn't have particularly long fingers and, particularly big hands. So by doing it over and over again, he gave himself nerve damage to his hands to where he couldn't play at a professional level anymore, and he went back to school. And that's when I met him. Now, this was the 90s, right? The late 90s. So, a couple of things I'm going to say about this guy that just stood out. Number one, he was a womanizer. If the girl was Asian and she had a boyfriend or a husband, he was on it, right? At one point, I remember he came back with his hand swelled up, his forearm and hand swelled up, and he was holding it wrong. I'm like, hey man, what's the problem? I think I broke my arm. I'm like, I was into Kung Fu, he knew that. And he knew I knew about Dit Da Jiao. I'm like, let me look at it. I didn't have Dit Da Jiao on me, but I knew Dia Da medicine. And I used a bucket of hot water to sort of manipulate the blood, and I would massage and I would put it in the hot water, massage, put it in the hot water. And it wasn't a clean break on the bone, but it was a fracture. So he had to eventually get a cast. I'm like, how'd you hurt yourself? Oh, apparently he was having an affair with this woman, and they were on the second floor, and her boyfriend walked in, and he jumped off the second floor balcony and had a hard landing. So that was interesting. That didn't stop him from continuing to pursue his amorous adventures, and he would talk about his amorous adventures, traveling the world, playing piano, and what countries he liked and what countries he didn't, and he liked this part of Southeast Asia, but not that. He liked that type of woman, but not that. It was really interesting. And then I remember he had a coworker in his office that he called, excuse me for a second, Hong Kong bitch. And he'd say, Hong Kong bitch this and Hong Kong bitch that. And I was just like, man, what is this guy's problem with, I don't know her name. What is his problem with Hong Kong bitch? And so one day, now to add to the story, I was a hall monitor, a building monitor. I was responsible for my building that I lived in, and that's how I got my living paid for as a graduate student. They were graduate student apartments, and it was a mixture of people from the U.S., from Asia, from Europe, from Russia, all this stuff. It was actually pretty cool living in it, and I lived with my man from Hong Kong and two other guys. One guy was Jewish, and then there was the Italian guy who annoyed the crap out of me. But one of my duties was, if a student got locked out, I would have a spare key. I would have like a master key, and I would, they'd notify me, and I'd go to their apartment, I'd let them in, and I'd be like, you got to pay a small fee. So, I'm marking it down here, you got to go to the office and pay it. So she comes to my room. It's, an afternoon. And she says, "Oh, yeah, I work with your roommate." And I'm thinking to myself, this is Hong Kong, bitch, right? And I look at her and I'm like, I got it. I got his beef with her. Because this girl from Hong Kong was an attractive woman. Tall, thin, but shapely. She had some curves. She had very silky black hair, as many Chinese women do, and there was a pretty face. Like, she was good looking, and I knew instantly that his hatred of her, or his problem with her, is that he was down with her. I know that because I was instantly down with her, and she was not down with him. And when I realized who she was, I think my facial expression changed. I'm like, I've heard of you. And then her facial expression changed, sort of got more reserved. And I let her in her apartment, and I'm like, well, if you need anything else, please give me a call. And, I would have loved for her to have needed something else and for her to have given me a call. But, yeah. This guy was a stunt double for Jackie Chan, a piano hand double. If you look in the movie and you see a scene where the camera is looking down at the hands, you'll see these hands that are not Jackie Chan's hands, and they're playing the piano quite adeptly. And I don't remember if they were playing Rachmaninoff or not. I don't know that much about piano pieces to differentiate. I mean, if I hear Chopin, I can kind of recognize it. And, in terms of classic music, I'm more of a Beethoven, and I love Vivaldi. I love the Four Seasons. That's like one classical music piece that I really recognize. And, now that I'm a Freemason, I should probably listen to the Silent Flute or the Magic Flute. I think that's from Mozart. And I have seen the movie Amadeus, and that was a long time ago, and I found it very entertaining movie. Don't know how true it is, but anyway, just thought I'd share that with you because it brought some good memories back, and I hope now that some of that good feeling is with you this fine weekend. Have a good night.